Okay, hello everyone. Hello, Anastasia. How are you
Hi,
today?
everyone. Doing good. And you?
I'm fine, thank you. How's the weather in Gdańsk?
Getting better. More sun,
Okay.
so staying energetic. And how are you? How about you?
Yeah, it's also fine in Krakow. Looks like the spring is coming, so hope for the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wait for the audience to join us and we'll get started shortly. And while we're waiting, just to remind you that you can leave your questions in the chat of our event. So you can do it both on VR community or on YouTube also. And we will answer these questions in the end of the webinar. And also, if you like our presentation, our webinar, you can say thank you on the webinar page. I will provide the link shortly. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, so already we have some people that are waiting for the start. So I guess we can get started. So, Anastasia, the floor is yours. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to our weekly webinar. Today, I would like to talk to you about the UAT and business analyst relationships and how to make these relationships successful and with good outcomes that would satisfy everyone. So before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Nastasia Shagun. I'm a senior business analyst with 5 years of experience in IT in general, and mostly I worked in fintech and e-commerce domains. Also have a master's degree in IT. Um, so yeah, let's be short here. Let's proceed with the presentation. What to expect today? I would like to briefly familiarize whoever doesn't know what UAT is, and also I would like to highlight the key role the business analysts play in this process. Also, we will just stop a little bit on the to discuss the UAT challenges and problems that may be faced during this difficult stage for someone. And I will also focus on best practices or some real world solutions that I developed for myself and try to stick them whenever I'm in the UAT phase. And in the end, we will talk about the real project that I had and the experience I faced and the things that I learned from that, and maybe you learn too. And in the end, as Tatiana mentioned, we will have the Q&A session where you will be able to raise your questions and maybe share your UAT experiences. So let's begin. What is UAT? It may sound as a very simple question, but I faced with the case that some BAs are not familiar with it. So user acceptance testing, or UAT, is a type of testing where the user ensures that the set of features that we are testing work successfully and can help the users complete certain business tasks. So we should remember that the UAT is always performed by the end users or the client. So it means that the UAT verifies that the developed solution works as expected. And this what expected, right? So this is the expected result from the business stakeholders' point of view. And the main goal is to ensure that software that we developed aligns with the business requirements that were defined at the beginning of the project. But you may also wonder where this process, the UAT, where it sits within the software development lifecycle. And because user acceptance testing is just a type of testing, right? So it's usually something different from system or functionality testing. So as you can see on this simple diagram, the UAT is the last step before production release. So it means it's the last a moment for us to validate that our solution, our developed solution, really helps the business stakeholders, business users fulfill their goals before it goes to production and a lot of customers, a lot of clients start using this. So, but why should I care as a BA, right? So because it sounds like from the description of the UAT, it's not understandable that I'm as a BA should care about this project, about this process, very much. And we should define this importance, right? And even sometimes highlight to stakeholders why it's important, why we should spend appropriate amount of time on that, and why we should waste our effort on that. I would like to demonstrate it with the simple graph that was based on the based on the survey from 2023, and you can see that only 20% of projects consider themselves as successful. This criterion of success is something that is particularly, I would say, it differs from project to project. Sometimes successful projects are considered those who fall within the budget or within schedule, but for some projects, if or I would say that most projects should define the success metrics, and if these metrics are appropriate and the level of them is achieved after the project is finished, these projects can be counted, and we can say that they are successful. But you can see that 80% of projects fail. And why this happens? So I just researched the internet and found that almost 30% of these failed projects are due to poor testing. Of course, it's not just purely UAT, but UAT is the last step. So that's why I would like to bring your attention to this point, that almost 30% of these projects that fail due to this reason. And you may already know, but I would just to highlight that UAT usually takes around 5-10% of the project time, but at the same time it saves you a lot of effort, money, and time, because eventually all the work that the team would have to redo, or all the resources that the team would have to spend on updating, or updating the system, changing the features, or maybe making some excuses to end users and losing their audience, is you can't even estimate that. So that's why it's sometimes worth mentioning to your business stakeholders who think that they're very busy, or maybe too busy to spend their time on that UAT phase is quite important to each project. But how, as a BA, how can I how should I contribute to this part of the process? What is expected from me from different roles? And is there any standard, process flow that I can follow and make sure that if I follow this process, I will be successful and the project will be a success in the end? So I prepared this simple, chart to demonstrate you the standard steps that I believe every BA uses in their and should use in their, day-to-day activities during the UAT phase. So the first step is planning and scheduling the UAT. What it means? It means for us creating, if we don't have, or updating the existing UAT schedule document. Also, it relates to defining key stakeholders and booking their calendars. It's as simple as that. So you need to book their calendars as early as possible, because sometimes their availability may be limited, and if you don't do this, so in the future you will have some delays. And worth mentioning that while you're considering stakeholders, it's not just business stakeholders. Sometimes your data, your test data, depends on some third parties, some integrations that your solution has. And it's also very important to make sure that this data is available during the UAT phase. And by that, I mean that you should also take care of making sure and testing that test data is ready on the test environment. And this means making sure that this third party knows about your upcoming UAT, and that they can prepare this test data. That was one of the things I learned early in my career. So going next is step number 2, which relates to preparing the UAT scenarios. For us as BAs, it would mean close collaboration with QA team in order to identify business processes that that our solution covers. By that, I mean we should create UAT scenarios, right? So UAT scenarios is just the way of describing what things need to be tested. And these things need to be clear and measurable. By saying measurable, I mean that we should not just define the expected result and also write down all the steps to get to this result, right? But we also, if we already know any metrics that can be measured during this phase, during testing phase, it's also worth mentioning or highlight to stakeholders that some metrics need to have certain values. Moving next, I can mention that preparing a UAT data and testing environment is, I would say, worse having it in a separate state, in separate step, because sometimes you know, I had such cases that you need to, make sure that all the accesses are granted to all of the stakeholders involved, that the testing environment is ready. By ready, I mean it should be stable, and no other team should be working on that environment. And that because I had, a situation when we had a project with multiple streams working on the same environment, and as it always happens when there is a demo or something important involving stakeholders, the environment doesn't work. Or for example, I've seen cases that when like part of the functionality was just deployed to this environment, so you as a BA need to make sure that all the functionalities that will be in scope of the UAT should be tested, is present on this environment, and the environment is stable before the session starts. The fourth step is related to the conducting training to stakeholders. By that, I mean that you should, as a BA, you should send them an email or maybe schedule a call to discuss how the UAT would go. So you need to provide them test credentials. You need to provide them the number of the latest build. You need to provide them, for example, links to your Confluence pages with scenarios, maybe send them UAT feedback form and remind how to fill them out, because this is important. So as you can see, these steps were related to UAT preparation. And as you can see, a lot of effort needs to be put before the UAT really begins, because the fifth step is the facilitation of the UAT session. This is the key moment where BA involvement is also needed. Like what it means for us facilitating the session, it means the communicating the UATs, coordinating the session by answering questions, by clarifying UAT scenarios. In my practice, the project I'm going to talk about in the end was related to financial domain, and that's why we spent a lot of effort preparing for that and a lot of effort during the facilitation. So I booked my stakeholders calendar, and during this time slot we usually had a meeting, but no one else from the team was present, just me and the stakeholders. And I had one stakeholder who just preferred to share their screen with me so that I can see how they work. And that was also very useful for me because I learned a lot from that experience. I didn't have enough exposure to the external clients, external customers who use our solution. That's why I used it as one of the elicitation techniques called observation, to see how business people use our product. And from that, while they were going through the UAT scenarios, doing all of the steps, I learned and managed to detect a few issues and some moments that need improvement. For example, it can be as simple as your stakeholders always going to the left side because they are looking for the button to confirm their input, but the button is present on the right. This may be something that just improves the user experience because you see that they constantly return to the left side. So this is something that as a BA you can be proactive to suggest that, and make sure that it's captured in your improvements log or product backlog. Moving to the next step, is the step that relates to preparing the UAT report. So, as a result of the UAT facilitation session, stakeholders are required to fill out the UAT feedback form. And after that, there can be, a lot of work on the BA shoulders too. So, as a BA, you have to analyze whatever is included in this form and define whether there's something that is reported is a bug. Then you can raise this issue and create a ticket in your issues log or defect log. At the same time, something that is raised by the stakeholder, it can be related to a change request. So the existing feature works as was requested initially, right? But at the same time, you don't that the stakeholders feel that something needs to be changed just because they had this first opportunity playing with the product themselves. And this can be a change request, so you can follow your normal change management process here. But something that is important to mention that they can be also a result as a new feature. For new feature, you might also add it in a product backlog to later on elaborate on the requirements. But at the same time, you should, as a BA, you should remember, you should do this first-hand analysis of what is what from all the reported things. Or maybe the stakeholder, there can be an option that the stakeholder just misunderstood the scenario, misunderstood the steps to follow, and just didn't manage, to complete the scenario and reach the expected result. That's why this is something that you can help the stakeholders with during the facilitation session mentioned earlier. And the last step here is communication. Of course, communicating the UAT findings is very important, very critical to build trust and transparency around, among all the parties involved, not just business stakeholders, but also keep your project managers, delivery managers, and your development teams involved and informed about what would happen with the developed features, whether it's something that they would need to rework or they can plan accordingly. Now I would like just to mention a few words about common UAT problems that I had, and later on I will share some tips and tricks how to overcome these challenges. So, of course, there are a lot of challenges, but I will just try to focus on the main ones. So, the first one relates to insufficient planning for UAT, missed scenarios. Imagine the case that you did all the preparation, you invited all stakeholders, so you booked the slot. Everything goes fine. So you check the environment, the data, but at the end of UAT, one of the stakeholders may raise this concern that, oh, what happens if I click this? What happens if I do this? It means that you might have skipped this scenario. This might happen because you either didn't collaborate closely with QAs, who should know better, some possible concerns that something may raise in the system in the developed functionalities, or you, for example, didn't approve the scenarios. This is quite important to not just prepare the scenarios, right, and write them down in Confluence page, for example. It's quite important to confirm and get the approval from the stakeholders that this is exactly what they want to do. Because in the very end, it's stakeholders' responsibility to verify that the solution works according to the business needs and goals. And if something is missed, for you, it would mean that the next round of the UAT will be scheduled, have to be planned, and a lot of time can be wasted because of that. The second problem that is very common is unavailability of key stakeholders. You may all know that most of the stakeholders are business people, and they don't usually have just your project as the only activity they do. They are multitasking every time, and they can't be always available whenever you ask. So you need to plan these interactions, this communication beforehand. And if it would be as early as possible, it's the best option, because you won't just you don't want to have yourself in the situation when you just have everything ready. You need to proceed with development of other features, but you still don't have feedback, any feedback from the business side about the first set of functionalities, right? So this can stop and delay your development or even production release. And also, one of the hints here is to find a backup person, maybe let's say the representative of this key stakeholder, who can also help you with the input, who can also be present during some UAT sessions, and who can also support you with the feedback on the UAT. It's just something worth remembering. Moving next, I can mention that if your UAT plan and UAT scenarios are missing the main thing, like clear objectives and criteria, it is a very difficult situation that the BA can be found in. Because if people just go in and don't know what to test, how to measure whether I tested it's expected, it's successful, it's fail, it's a fail, it can be just it can just bring a lot of confusion and frustration to the team, because stakeholders, they spend their time, they want this time to be spent as valuable as it can be. And if you just waste their time because you just poorly described that and didn't clearly outline whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be reached, this is a waste of time for them. So yeah, not a pleasant situation. And the last point here is connected to the poor documentation and communication of the UAT results. I had a few cases that when, for example, the UAT feedback form was shared with the BA, but for some reason BA just didn't do anything, or like the team didn't do anything. Maybe they didn't have a dedicated BA, maybe they didn't have time or didn't know what to do. But any stakeholder who participated in the UAT, who feels quite involved in the project, they need to be kept engaged. And to have that happen, you need to, as a BA, you need to analyze whatever comes to you in this UAT feedback form and do this first-hand analysis, whether it's a bug, change request, or maybe new feature or something, some misunderstanding happened, and that's why a stakeholder didn't reported this issue. But you need to have the resolution from development team. You will be the representative of the development team in the customer eyes. So please make sure that you make this analysis and then later on communicate these UAT findings to everyone. Everyone, it means development teams, any type of managers who needs to be involved, and also the business stakeholders. Talking about solutions to this to the mentioned problems, I can say that I've developed a few best practices that helped me a lot. And every time I'm in during the UAT phase and I need to do something, I always refer to this list. So hopefully it would be useful for you as well. As I mentioned earlier, try to involve the right stakeholders as early as possible. Engage them in your regular things about the UAT. For example, you have the UAT scenarios review, or you can plan some even scenarios generation sessions. So anything related to UAT, plus please keep them informed and try to engage them so that they can give you input and not you are sitting here alone and inventing scenarios. Because the input ideally should come from the business stakeholders. But when you are creating scenarios, it's just you are trying to help the business stakeholders with that. And the earlier it happens, the better. Then moving to the next point, which is developing a comprehensive UAT plan. It means that as a BA, you need to create UAT plan. UAT plan is not just the list of scenarios with the well-structured content. That's obviously most part of it, but make sure that you also mention all the stakeholders that are involved, mention their roles and responsibilities during UAT. This would help everyone understand the context, and maybe if there are multiple business stakeholders involved, they can think on some difficult scenarios that they think that might impact their functionality, or the other functionality. They can just have a common understanding of whatever happens after this production release when UAT is finished, to their areas of responsibility remains of good quality, and that there won't be any complaints from the end customers. About defining clear acceptance criteria, I mentioned earlier, but I would like to just to highlight that these criteria should be just clearly written, that so that everyone who opens this UAT plan, uh, even if this person is not from the IT at all, right? So because business people usually don't have much knowledge about how IT works, so they should be able to understand how to measure the success of this particular scenario, whether it's a go or no go. So just make sure that if you for example don't understand, if it was written, or someone from the dev team suggested to you, and you as a BA don't understand what it means, so for sure that business stakeholders won't understand it either. So please make sure that your criteria are clear to everyone. With test and data, it's a very, I would say, I say everything that everything is important, but believe me, this one is very, I would say, tricky, because I also had this experience early in my career that I just forgot that our system has integration with other system, and that the data that came to us, is dynamically changing. And stakeholders, they were just they, because they knew the product better than I, because I didn't have exposure to the business use cases. That's why they wanted to see this data dynamically changing, and depending on this data change, they would like to see different behavior of the system. And I didn't know that. I forgot about informing and notifying this third party that we need some, let's say, artificial changes on their sides, just to be on the safe side, to check all the scenarios, all edge cases. And as a result, I had to just move and reschedule this session a bit later, when I found out what this team was doing, and also finding the proper slot with them and with the stakeholders. So that's why it just, as a result, it just delayed our production release, which wasn't wanted from the business perspective. That's why just please remember about that. In terms of the templates, my advice would be to try to prepare, if you for example work on the project that has regular production releases, it's also worth investing your time and effort into preparing the standard UAT artifacts. Some templates that will be helpful for you, and also your team would also be, I would say, more focused, or they would know what to expect. For example, you can come up with the UAT scenarios template. It would have some dedicated, columns with the proper naming, with maybe some copy hints explaining what it means, and so on. So this is something that helped me a lot when I, first got on a project with a lot of production releases. And the last but not less important is related to documenting and communicating UAT findings. It may be frustrating for business stakeholders receive no feedback after the UAT session, or if they can't see any progress with the issues that they identified. So that's why it's better to have it available to everyone who is involved, and so that they can make sure that someone can be held accountable for this particular item that was identified. And this brings like the feeling that something is under control, and everyone, had shared the same understanding of what's happening post UAT. So now I would
Um,
like to.
I'm sorry, Anastasia. Unfortunately, we are already out of time. And unfortunately, I have to drop to the client meeting. So probably you can share this presentation as a link to our webinar page. And I'm so sorry, but we need to, end
Yes,
the
sorry.
presentation. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I will
And
share the.
yeah, could you please share this link and I will attach it to the page of the webinar. Yeah, and
Yep,
thank you very much for
of
your
course.
presentation. It was really fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Please, if you have any questions, reach out to me on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah. So
Um,
far, I
uh,
don't have any. I don't see any questions, but yeah, you can ask Anastasia offline. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Sorry, я побежал.
Ой, я вообще